welcome back. We continue our conversation on Rise and Shine this morning. We treat with TEMA, and that's disaster preparedness. And of course, we do have from the medical office, the Central Medical Office, Mr. Darren Moore Sampson, and of course, Miss Yearwood Jack from TEMA. Good morning and welcome, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
Morning.
Very good. Let's get into it. Of course, and so, thank you guys. The disaster preparedness obviously is to bring the whole question of prepared for the hurricane season. And we were told that we are in the hurricane season as well as the wet season. So obviously, we are to get prepared. But let's start with you, Ms. Jack. In TEMA's readiness to treat with any eventuality, should we have, God forbid, any of these hurricanes? How many hurricanes we have cited already, if not, or developing or intend to develop? You all will tell me how the process works. Go ahead.
Well, I'm not the Trinidad and Tobago Met Service, but I know that this year they said it's going to be a higher than usual activity for rainfall and hurricanes. I know that they said that it's supposed to have at least 3 named storms this year that may affect us. So I'm not aware of any hurricanes in the region affecting us as yet, but they did say it's going to be higher than usual activity.
Very good. All right, so, and we get into the details of readiness and so on. But let's bring Mr. Darren Moore Sampson in here in terms of, from the medical office, he's from the county medical office, and we're dealing with, just speak to us in the role that the county medical office plays in disaster preparedness.
Right, so good morning. With respect to disaster preparedness, what our office does is that we really focus on the post-disaster care. Right, so we just, in terms of our presentations, when we go about to the different public, we emphasize the need to be prepared and to be extra careful after disaster, especially in relation to hygiene efforts.
All right, well, let's talk about being careful. Being aware is to be forearmed, meaning that you should have certain things in place. Just speak to us, what do we need to have in place, Mr. Sampson, when we're talking about being ready and aware and prepared?
Okay, so we do a regular outreach around this time of the year. So the presentation is split out into 3 parts. It includes the Trinidad and Tobago Met Services, and their main focus is to focus on accurate and reliable sources of news for information. Then we have TEMA, where they focus on preparing in terms of preparing grab-and-go bags, emergency kits, and preparing your household. And for us, the main thing is about hygiene efforts.
All right.
So that's the
thing
in a nutshell.
So basically you're on a campaign, and so the hard target campaign entails coming to the varying media houses to promote awareness for preparing for disaster. Let's talk to that.
Right, so we have had the Make Tobago a Hard Target campaign. I think we began in 2017. And the main purpose of that campaign is to build resilience through preparing people. We've realized that, Tobago is at the bottom of the hurricane belt. So we have had a sense of complacency and comfort. So we really want to help people, as Darren said, to prepare what to do before, during, and after, recognize the signs, know what the warnings are, what the yellow level means according to the Trinidad and Tobago Met Service. And I really speak about what to do before, to emphasize having a family communications plan, building your grab-and-go kit, your emergency kit, having even a muster point at home. We also emphasize at the TEMA where shelters should be. Right, so you have to know where is the potential shelters, which most likely will be the multi-purpose center or the community center or the school. So in this campaign is a collaborative effort, as Darren said, and I think this year we may even join with the Red Cross, and we've already begun. We went to the Crown Point Beach Hotel this week, and we're going to the MIC as well this week. So we already began. Normally we'd start at June, but we started a little early this year. And we want to just emphasize that we want to come to you to just speak to your staff, your school, your summer camp about how to prepare before the hurricane begins. Preparedness is key. Preparedness stops panic.
How do you prepare?
As we mentioned before, 1, talk to your family. Most people do not talk to your family about what plan it has in place for emergencies. For example, do your children know your emergency numbers? Your number your work number. When we go to the schools, we realize that most children, even when I went to a school yesterday, I asked, what is the emergency number? They told me 911. 911 is the American emergency number. So you have to educate them, what is our emergency numbers? Your number, where do you work? Have that information in these children's bag. 2, you're supposed to have at least a little muster point. If you cannot reach home, you know Tobago is disaster prone when it comes to landslides and fallen trees. You know the first thing that goes down in an emergency is your telecommunications and your electricity. You may not be able to reach your family. So have a plan in case I have not been able to reach you, where do you go? Where do you stay? Have that conversation. And also, what do you have in your grandma and go bag? You do not wait until the med service says it is going to be on landfall in the next 8 hours to panic and rush. You're supposed to have that and prepare for at least 2 weeks. As in the case of Grenada, the residents in that country is still having to recover to this day, and that hurricane made landfall last year.
Very good. All right, so Mrs. Sampson, let's talk about that whole question of people being injured and have to be taken to one of the shelters or, let's say, be treated before maybe taken to the hospital.
Right.
What does the service provide in that regard, and how do we get to those persons? Let's say they are marooned in a particular area. Obviously, have to be in collaboration with TEMA and transportation and so on. But just speak about the readiness for that type of circumstance in situations.
Okay, so in those instances, firstly, I represent public health, right? So we will not be responsible for ambulance services.
Okay,
right? However, you could utilize the 211 contact number or 639-4444, so you could reach out to the ambulance services. And you could also reach out to TEMA, and they should be able to coordinate efforts to assist whomever anywhere.
All right, and in the event, all right, so let's deal with the whole question of the emergency shelters. Not an emergency shelter is your regular community center, maybe a church. Speak to us about in the areas, well, what are really emergency shelters?
Right, so emergency shelters are designated places where we said, okay, these places are designated as shelters for people to gather. Right now, our first tier of those places are the community centers and the multipurpose centers. Our second tier will be the schools, and our third tier is the churches. This year, we collaborated efforts, our planning unit at TEMA collaborated efforts with the community development, who is in charge of these places' infrastructure. We are talking about the village councils and the multipurpose centers and stuff like that. We collaborate with them. We collaborate efforts with OSH as well as the Trinidad and Tobago Fire Service to do checks on these buildings to see what gaps they have, and to make a report to be able to fix these gaps. And TEMA is right now doing our own shelter checks. We have our own designated shelters where we leave stock every year. For example, in Louisdor, which is a very active shelter because you know how far it is. We have gone there, we check the stocks that we left there, we have it at a different room where it's secure, and then we go back and we make sure we stock those.
Restock in case that thing expire.
Yes.
Because you have a can of sardine there since last year.
Right, like last year, it became active because of burial. They actually used that shelter. So we realized, okay, this is water left. They use, I can't remember everything they used, but it was used. And therefore, we went back there, our logistics unit and myself, and a CERT unit, and we stocked what was there. So they are, not all shelters are stocked like that. There are some TEMA shelters that are stocked with stuff beforehand.
Very good. And let's stay, all right, and so, Mr. Sampson, I want to, all right, so from a health standpoint, and how do we, right, for example, all right, so the shelters are there, they're operational, they're stocked. Who manages the centers or the shelters?
I'll have to answer that question.
You will have to answer that?
Yeah.
But no, before you answer, right, so what role do you play with regards to the center in terms of the equipment? For example, besides food stock, there may be other equipments that public health can fit in terms of maybe providing. I don't know, you tell me, is there a coordination in regards to baby beds, mattresses? I don't know. Talk to me from that standpoint. Cots.
Right. So with respect to stocking of shelters, Melissa would have mentioned that shelters are stocked in advance. right? What I will say is that there is a level of coordination between the different agencies on the island who respond to disasters, right? So in that respect, even if we don't physically provide beds, there will be doctors on hand accordingly. The health education teams will be there to distribute information and educate persons who may be utilizing the shelters so that everybody could be on one page. Remember to focus on your hygiene to minimize your chances of getting sick, be it from things such as leptospirosis, different skin conditions from wading in floodwaters, or even COVID-19, which is still around, or even respiratory viruses.
Leptospirosis is a disease spread by rats.
Yes.
Right, good. So let's say that the stock at one of the shelters, rat infested, may have invaded and bite a backup biscuit. Nobody had noticed. And then they serve the biscuit to people. In terms of, and then you might have the human rat that would thief the stuff in the shelters. Those are real stuff, real issues here. Let's speak to that. How do you ensure that the stock is in keeping with health standards, and of course to ensure that the right person is there and not somebody, as you turn your back, they're gone with some milk?
Right. So in the places that TEMA designates stocks, we have the shelter manager. Most of the time that will be somebody from the village council president, or the coordinator of the multi-purpose center. They are supposed to make sure that the stocks are always ready to tell us if anything has been stolen or used so they could be replaced. And on the day before they give out stock, they're supposed to check. As the education officer here we would say, we do not want anybody to get sick during that time. Because as you know, during an emergency, the health system will be under pressure, like in COVID. So the CMOH has always emphasized, make sure and check all the tins, make sure and check everything before you eat it, because getting sick during that time is detrimental to your health, right? So we do not, as they would always say when they're coming with us, the main function is do not get sick during that time. So if you put anything in your mouth, make sure you check it, you double check it, you open it, you make sure it hasn't been eaten, and even if you are hungry, throw it away, because it is better to be hungry than to be sick.
All right, so meals will be cooked at the center in some cases?
In some cases, yes, and we do have, what do you call the firecracker? So one or two places does have the firecracker that we have there stocked. Some places do not, but we do say you can cook at the shelter, and we do provide what you call MREs, which is the what the military use for food. And of course, you know, as we wait for the government, I know that they do have some tin stuff there, but not much.
Very good.
So you know you have to change the tin stuff every 6 months or a year according to the expiry date.
All right. All right, so we have managing the training. You have training to people, citizens, as to talk to us about the training, Mr. Sampson, and then we'll close with you, Ms. Yearwood.
All right, so I can give you a quick summary of the presentation. All right, so the presentation, it's usually split into 3 parts. It includes the Trinidad and Tobago Met Services, so a guy by the name of Travis Gardner usually accompanies us. So in his part of the presentation, he covers like all the different weather systems you have to look out for, where you'll get accurate information from. We then turn over to TEMA with Melissa, who will focus on the 2 main things, are preparing a disaster communication plan. As she would have mentioned, nobody has a muster point for their house, but everywhere you go, work, school, any place, there are muster points. But we have a blind spot to them at our own household. Right? So we prepare grab and go bags, and from our perspective, like the mantra I like to use is when in doubt, throw it out, with relation to food that may be contaminated with floodwaters and the like. And it's just about utilizing common sense. So like if you pick up after a flood, like say a couple of weeks after, and you go to the grocery and you see 20 pounds of tomatoes for $5, you know,
Something right.
Something all right. So utilize common sense, turn on the switch, be a little skeptical, and things that like lettuce, tomatoes, cucumbers that may have come in contact with floodwaters, you avoid purchasing them unless it's your own and you know for a fact that it was not contaminated.
Very good. All right, we close with you, Ms. Yearwood.
All right. So we just want to emphasize that our team is ready to reach you. You could contact me at melissa.jack@gov.tt and email me when and where that you would want to have us talk to your staff or your camp. We do talk to kids as well. We just want to know that we also will be doing a shelter management training, hopefully in July, the first week of July. And even if you're not connected to a shelter, we invite you to be part of that training, because anybody could be a shelter manager. For example, if a school is open, we might not have enough persons to be shelter managers at the school. So anybody who is trained could be a shelter manager. So you could contact me at 7565646 or melissa.jack@gov.tt.
Very good. And thank you both for being here. And so we have the information and, of course, to connect with you all, so we'll be properly guided as to how to treat with this storm and whatever. God forbid that we do have one, and we continue to pray. Thank you very much for being here, and all the best to you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.